Hey guys, welcome back to another video in part 3, I think, of my big season preview. The 24-25 season is upon us this weekend. Some would argue it started last weekend, but I would argue it starts at Chelsea, even though we won. We'll ignore that for now anyway and focus on City's upcoming campaign. This is the tactics part now. I'm not going to pretend I'm some tactico. I'm not going to pretend I'm some expert here, but I drafted in a man who definitely talks about these things a lot more than I do. Already a nervous face. No, you definitely do, mate. I've seen the videos. Got Nobbins here on the channel for the second time. How are you doing, my friend? Are you good?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Yes, I was just concerned you were going to introduce me as an all-knowing tactical person. That is not me, but I can
Just
talk about it, of course.
scratch that next line then. No, I know you have chatted a few times about it, and this isn't going to be the most in depth. We're not going to be doing Venn diagrams of what we need and all this kind of stuff and graphs and all that kind of stuff. But we are going to produce some graphics up and we're going to have a talk about what we want to see, what we think we could see. None of us can get inside Guardiola's head. That guy is a enigma wrapped in a mystery, surrounded by a riddle, that man there. But I feel like we can get a decent insight of what happened by looking backwards, maybe looking at some previous teams, and talk about what we could hope to see given the squad that we've got now. And it does feel, even though there's only been one or two changes, the balance, the dynamic of the team could be really different this year. I mean, naturally, it's going to be that way because of the wingers. And I did a whole video, of course, with Amos talking about the squad depth. So go and give that a watch. But for now, I'm going to do some very clunky editing here as I switch things around in StreamYard over to the sort of the graphics thing. So 1 second. There we go. There we go. I thought it'd be a good place there, Nobbins, to start looking at previous formations over the years. Mainly because I feel like it could be a good reference point. Now, the reason I'm going to start at 17-18 season, which obviously this wasn't always a lineup, is because that was probably the last time I remember City being so explosive with the wingers. Could we see a potential reference, if not full-on reversion, to something like this, given the squad balance that we've got?
In terms of the attacking, I don't see why not. That definitely could be replicated because the key features of this 17-18 setup offensively, we had like the 2-3-8s, David Silva and De Bruyne. You could say that's Phil Foden, De Bruyne. But the main feature was the flying right-sided wingers. You have a left footer on the left, a right footer on the right. And we do have access to that at City now. We do have Doku, who's played, I know he played mostly on the left last season, but Ferenni was more so of a right-sided player. Savio, I think he is a right winger more so, but he played most of the last season on the left. So it's definitely an option, and it definitely could be a thing, especially when you think if we've got a big, tall striker. If you think of whenever City are struggling to score, what do we end up resorting back to? We try to cross the ball for Haaland to attack. The main reason why I don't think this would work necessarily is because of the man in the middle, Fernandinho. As brilliant as Rodri is, on the ball, etc., in my opinion, the only real reason why this worked at all was because Fernandinho locked down the entire midfield on his own. He's one of only very few midfielders capable of doing that. As good as Rodri is, that's not Rodri's strengths. So this is why I think that it can't be a carbon copy. So people hoping we're just going to go back to 17-18, exactly, and exactly. It's not going to happen exactly because Rodri, we saw last season, there were games where he was overran. We only looked better when Kovacic was played alongside him. But there could certainly be some principles. As I say, it's two-sided, two-footed, wide players potentially in Sane, Sterling, Savio, Doku, as I say. The main reason why I don't think it will work, as I say, is because of that defensive midfielder situation against. Not a slight on Rodri. Rodri does things Fernandinho can't do, vice versa.
I feel like I need to address the elephant in the room, the live chat you're watching. A lot of people talking about an apparent serious Oscar Bob injury. I hope you guys are absolutely waffling there. It's coming from via Big Steve saying he's got injured in training, apparently. Look, guys, we're going to have to part that chat for now anyway because it's all rumours and there's no point discussing it and derailing the video fully, because it won't really make for good viewing if you watch this back, and it could be confusing. We will see. We can't really speculate. All we can do is carry on, crack on, and talk about the tactics and try and look forward to it, because that is just pure speculation. I have no idea. I hope it's absolutely disastrously wrong, because that would be a massive, massive blow. But either way, even if he's injured, he's going to be back some of the season, so it's still relevant to talk about it. But I agree with you that, mate. Do you know what? I think the next place to kind of head over to would probably actually look what we did last season. There was times last season I don't think everything we tried worked. We were chatting briefly on WhatsApp about that. In particular, I would say there's elements of this side. This wasn't always obviously a starting 11. I've actually got 3 different graphics from how we lined up last season. This was one iteration where we often saw a Kanji step into the field alongside Rodri. Julian Alvarez, obviously sort of playing as an 8/10, pushing alongside Haaland. For me, I always felt the problem here was that we had too many defensive players. Even Ake was pushing up a little bit every now and then, close to the goal. We had a Kanji sort of drifting where Foden is on that graphic. To me, it didn't feel like it worked. Are you of the same opinion?
Yeah, exactly. Shameless plug, I do have a video on my channel which does go into every single tactic City used last season. So after you finish this stream, go watch that video. But yes, in terms of this one, you're absolutely right. Akanji did a very serviceable job in the Stones role. But again, he isn't John Stones. He wasn't able to do it properly. There were too many times where he wasn't really able to evade pressure in the same way that Stones is able to do so. He didn't really know the areas he should have been picking up in the same way that Stones did. But he gave it his best shot and he did an okay job. But I think the first time I saw us do this was in the Chelsea game at Stamford Bridge, if memory serves. And it was absolutely suicidal to do that against the Chelsea side, who were so happy to just counterattack on us. And they overran us in the midfield constantly and bypassed us constantly. So yeah, it just did not work from a build-up perspective, made us much easier to press. The Alvarez in the midfield issue was something that plagued City's issues all season, or the majority of the season anyway, whereas the Akanji experiment was more just so a few times. The Alvarez being in midfield is not, again, it's not a slice on Alvarez. He's not a midfielder. It's not his fault. Yeah. Doesn't have the best first touch. Doesn't have the 360 vision. Doesn't have the right passing range required for a midfielder. Often we'd also see Foden popped out on the wings in place of, to accommodate Alvarez in the middle. Foden was often placed on the wings. That made him less effective. So that was a key reason why this tactic ultimately didn't work. And yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, if you look back at Manchester City's rich midfield history, the guys using the pockets were Gundogan, David Silva, and we had times where, if you know for their own, Alvarez and Akanji were picking up the ball just outside the area and had no idea what to do with it. Because Alvarez is, he's a very good striker, but he's not a great player in the way that Gundogan is, or David Silva, or even Bernardo to an extent. And Akanji, absolutely a fish out of water there. More than competent technically, obviously. Probably would be one of our better players 20 years ago on the ball. But this isn't that era, you know. I'm sure he's better than Joey Barton, but he ain't better than Ilkay Gundogan or Phil Foden. And he was far too close to goal too often. The amount of times you'd see defenders camped back and he would be getting the ball just sort of where Rodri or Gundogan used to get it previously, or Fernandinho. I had no idea what to do with it. And he'd just sort of recycle it out wide constantly. And it felt laborious, and occasionally get the ball on the edge of the area and he gets immediately surrounded because his touch wasn't good enough and he didn't have the 360 vision. So look, it was functional, but it wasn't exciting. There's often occasionally a situation like this where we had Kyle Walker, for whatever reason. Like Phil Foden would start on the right, but he'd drift inside and Kyle Walker would provide width. Now, the issue there was Kyle Walker is not an attacking player at all. And it felt like every time the ball went over to that side, we couldn't wait for it to get to Doku on the other side. I don't see this again this season, do you?
Yeah, this was, and this is why I think you addressed at the start of the video when you said no one can get in Pep's head. I don't think anyone before the start of last season would have said, oh, of course, we're going to play Kyle Walker. He's going to be our main right winger when we have the ball. I don't think anyone would have predicted that. The reason why he did it is purely to get Phil Foden into midfield, because this is what we call the false winger system. Barcelona used to do it with Iniesta on the left, Jordi Alba pushing up, and Iniesta actually being more of a central player, technically starting off the left. David Silva even used to do it with a Clichy or Kolarov going over on that left side. So the reason why I do it is to get your wide player into the middle. And to be fair, it worked in terms of getting Foden into the midfield. But as you've quite rightly said, the issue then is you are replacing an attacking player with a defender. You've gone from a Mahrez, a Bernardo Silva, a Doku to a Kyle Walker, and this isn't this isn't Walker from 7 years ago. He's not good at attacking anymore. That sounds quite harsh, but he's not got the crossing on him as much, certainly in terms of the build up. And that was the main issue with this, to be honest. And I think you asked, will we see it again? Probably not as much. I think there's a reason why we've signed Savio. I think that Doku will have a big season. I know we're not discussing Oscar Bob's injury now, but hopefully he's fine. And I think there's a reason it also goes to him getting more minutes this season, probably at right wing. I think this season we're going to see more wingers play as wingers rather than fullbacks playing as wingers. So hopefully less of the Gavardio left wing, less of the Walker right wing. Hopefully, as I say, more of that, and that should help our attacking structure.
You would think so, wouldn't you?
Yes,
you'd absolutely think so. I mean, there's too much quality there at wide, and Guardiola. I think there was at times. Look, we know he's been very vocal about wanting his wingers to be aggressive, and I think there's a large reason why he lent on Doku so much is because Jack's form wasn't there, and Jack was a little bit too passive. Jack Grealish has never been the most aggressive guy, but even by his own standards last season, he wasn't offering much. And given the fact that we're putting Kyle Walker so far up, I think he was feeling the pinch a little bit in terms of creativity out wide. And I think this season it will be hopefully a reversion to that. Now, of course, once again, the rumors going about Oscar Bob. Presume he's not going to be out all season, so we can talk about him confidently that he's going to be involved and part of this setup. I mean, and I do think it's going to be a sort of throwback to that sign where we're playing that, which dynamically that's really exciting. The pace that they will bring wide, I can't wait for it. And the last kind of sort of time we played in it, I think this is how we lined up on the last day of the season, actually, when De Bruyne was back in the side. Bernardo Silva on the right, Doku on the left, Vardy sort of pushing up a little bit, obviously playing as a left winger with Doku. Doku was drifting central a bit every now and then. And Kyle Walker a little bit deeper. Rodri behind Foden and De Bruyne. And it was weird to see that Foden and De Bruyne on the pitch at the same time. I didn't think Guardiola would actually go for it, but he did. De Bruyne, of course, sort of pressing, saying more as the second striker, if we're being honest. The amount of times he was alongside Haaland, and definitely in the press anyway. It was a 4-4-2 defensively, wasn't it, in the press? And he would sort of push up alongside Haaland. How do you think Guardiola, in a different sense, manages Foden and De Bruyne this season? Because obviously, we've seen that he's tried them alongside each other. I do think those elements are crowding. I don't think they fully got on the same wavelength when they came back. Not to say they didn't work every now and then, but it is something to consider.
Yeah, so this team that we've got here is nearly the same team that basically won us the title. So this was the team that played the last game of the season. The only difference in terms of this team to the post Arsenal draw, that's when we changed more so and we committed to a 2-3-5 and we got Kovacic alongside Rodri. So the only difference is that Doku will be swapped out for Kova. Gavardio was given more of a left wing role. But I was really excited to see this team on the last day of the season in a must-win game, and not against an easy opponent. West Ham are a very good side, and I would love us to do something like this throughout next season in terms, because we need Foden and De Bruyne, in my opinion, to be in the midfield at the same time. Foden has the more fixed 10 role. De Bruyne has the more floating role where he can basically go wherever his heart desires to an extent. The question mark will be, I think, is that, but I don't really like the idea of Bernardo Silva being a high choice at right wing. I think that last season we saw when he moved to the middle, City looked a lot better. I think his influence at right wing is declining. The only question then becomes, if we, let's say, swap out Bernardo for Bob or Bernardo for Savio, let's say, that's a very, very aggressive offensive side. There's a lot of carry first players in there. There's a lot of not very many horizontal players, i.e. players who like to go left to right, side to side, like a Grealish or Bernardo. Lots of vertical players, I say, like a De Bruyne, like a Haaland, like a Foden. It could work offensively. It's just extremely the opposite of controlled. The main question, I think, here is, how does the out? So let's say we lined up like this, for example.
Yeah.
How willing would Pep be to play like this out of possession against better sides, i.e. Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, etc.? Because with this team, we, if people don't know, we press out in a 4-4-2 out of possession when we don't have the ball. It means that Foden is alongside Rodri. Now, Foden only did that as far as my memory serves, he only did that 3 times last season. Foden. He did it against RB Leipzig in the Champions League when we actually played a 4-3-3.
Yeah.
Did it in the West Ham game. But interestingly, did it in the second leg of the Champions League against Real Madrid, which is obviously a very important game. So that tells me that maybe Pep's happy with the idea of Foden playing in the midfield out of possession. Now, I would be very happy with that. I think we actually discussed it last time I was on your show, Steve, and we talked about how Pep said in around 2020-ish, Pep said something along the lines of, I think that Foden can become a holding midfielder. He didn't mean a defensive midfielder. He just meant an all-round player, like a Gundogan type player. So I would love the next stage in Foden's evolution to be him being that more all-round midfielder, more of a generalist rather than a specialist. However that will happen, maybe that's wishful thinking, I don't know. But that would be the only way I could see that be fair. I'm just trying to, unless we absolutely change it, because again,
so I can change it now, by the way. So I've got it. This is live. This on screen now, so I can move anything around if you want me to. Like, what would you do to make it work? Like, how would you change it? What would you bring in terms to support this idea?
Logistically, the only way it can work is if Foden is trusted with that central role. This is out of possession, and if he's trusted to be switched on defensively and good enough defensively. Now, I think he could do that. Let's not forget that Pep trusted Alvarez in that double pivot against Chelsea at home. Even the first game of the season against Burnley, he played Alvarez in that before De Bruyne's injury. He played Alvarez alongside Rodgers. I think Pep would have the faith in Foden, hopefully. And I think that Foden is only going to get better in that position if he is coached there and if he plays there long term. I've got high hopes that he can do that. I think that could be the next stage in his evolution. Because you can't leave Rodri on his own, as we've discussed. He needs some help there.
Do you think there's any chance of a reversion? Because I've got one of the graphics I've got up on screen as well. Is something we haven't gone back to very much was the treble winning season. There we go. You know, where we had Stones alongside Rodri, Ake, Diaz, Akanji was started, of course, at right back, and when Kyle came on, we had Jack on the left, Bernardo on the right, Gundo, De Bruyne. Essentially, we played in a 3-2-4-1 kind of thing. Do you think there's any chance of something like that this season? To let Foden go a little bit further forward, Stones or Akanji doing that, or Vardy? Do we see him make that move this year? Because or do you think it's a simple case of it's more of a traditional back four?
I think we must, and we will either build up in a 3-2 or a 2-3. That is for sure, because Pep loves the numerical superiority. He likes to outnumber the opposition's midfield. So yes, if in terms of that 3-2 build-up, I don't know if it will be the exact same. A lot of it does depend on the fitness of John Stones and or the trust placed in Rico Lewis, who we know can invert to midfield from defence, or can Guardiola learn how to do that? I think he could learn how to do that. I think he's got the skill set to do that. It's incredibly difficult to do. John Stones, like even when City fans, we were watching Stones, we thought, oh, he's perfect in this role. You know, Stones did interview saying, I'm really struggling here. Like, it's really hard. I still haven't quite cracked it. And we thought he was doing a great job there. So it's not like a case of, oh yeah, Guardiola, shove him in there. It will take time. But I would love to see again this season, now he's had a full season at City, can we try to gradually incorporate that idea when Stones is out, for example, and when Stones picks up an inevitable injury, for example?
Something like this, basically.
Exactly. And I think that would be an unbelievably solid back four. Ake at left back, Gvardio left centre back, Diaz right centre back, and then Akanji as the right back. I think that would be really solid from an out of possession perspective.
I mean, I put Akanji there because I prefer him to Kyle Walker.
I agree.
I think he's a smarter player. I think the days of Kyle Walker's pace up and down the right are reasonably not needed to the same extent. I think Akanji's he's fast. Akanji's fast. You know, he's not Kyle Walker pace, no, but he's fast, and we saw how good he was in the Champions League running. He was absolutely excellent. Brilliant. So I've got no doubt he'd be good there. I mean, I would love to see this. I think it's interesting because Vardy's come in and he's become essentially sort of as a left winger. He's learned this role really well. He's scoring goals from around here, from the edge of the area, getting forward. This would be yet another role change for him. And we do know it tends to take a while for Guardiola to trust a player to play centrally. But then Akanji last season was doing that a fair bit, and he didn't have 6-7 years of experience like Stones did before he was told to try it. So Guardiola might give it a go. I wouldn't be surprised at all. What I would ask you though is like, where does Bernardo Silva fit into this? I think because I got a feeling he's going to play a lot more central this season. I don't think that's a
Yes.
surprising thing. It's almost certain given the wingers that we've got. Is it a case of one of Foden or De Bruyne sits out potentially?
Well, the good thing is that there are going to be, or the bad thing, depending on how you look at it, is it's going to be like 60, 70, however many games this season, depending on how deep City go in tournament. So it's not a case of, this is a starting 11 and why isn't this player on the team? He'll never play. There will be lots of rotation. I do agree that Bernardo's presence in this City side should be in the middle. If he has to play, we know he can play on the right. Touching on De Bruyne for a second, he can't play every single game because he's getting older. He's getting more injury prone, and there's no need to start him in every single. For example, again, no disrespect to, let's say, Ipswich at the Etihad. Does De Bruyne need to start that game? In my opinion, no, he doesn't. So I think that's where maybe a Bernardo, for example, would play centrally. I do also think it depends on signings. In my brain, hopefully, we aren't going to be signing a striker. I'd like to see us maybe do a false nine thing. Bernardo Silva's very good at that. So in games where Haaland's out injured, that could be another avenue where Bernardo gets some minutes because he can play basically anywhere, as we know.
Last time we did false nine properly was 21-22, and I think this is a random game that we took there, but we knew how fluid it was. Back four was usually something like Cancelo, Laporte, Stones, Walker. We had obviously Cancelo getting forward quite a lot and inverting. Jack was on the left, but occasionally, my mind's blanked, but he wasn't always there. That was his first season, of course. Mahrez on the right. We had Bernardo Silva going down with De Bruyne and Rodri. Finadino played a fair bit that season as well. I think he did. And Foden. Obviously, it was false nine Foden that season. But the amount of times, as you said, we saw Gundo or Bernardo or Mahrez or De Bruyne there as well. Do you think we have the players for this? What I mean by that is, like, if I look at that collection of players there, like De Bruyne, a lot younger, a lot more mobile. I mean, much more of a midfielder back then than he is now. Right now, Guardiola plays him so close to the striker that he feels almost like, he's playing, as a second striker almost. Obviously, still a midfielder. You know what I'm getting at. Bernardo Silva, well, his game is, he's still the same, but he's played on the right a fair bit since then, and he doesn't feel quite as central as he used to be. Gundogan, a pure technical genius, in terms of pause and all that kind of stuff. Mahrez, a genius as well on the ball and a lot of experience at that point. The equivalent would be, obviously, Jack could still be there, of course. It'd be a Savinho, or Bob, or Bernardo on the right. I don't think any of them are quite Mahrez in terms of that level of intelligence that you'd have in a false nine system personally. Maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Oscar Bob could be that. I don't know. Do you think we've got the squad right now, and I could be wrong, to be as effective as that era in a false nine?
I think, if anything, the squad now might be even more suited to it. We've still got the small space experts, like Foden, Bob, Bernardo, etc. But we've also got this. This is where I think that maybe the wingers would be the main beneficiaries of this system, because it would maybe take less impetus on trying to find the run of Haaland, for example, and maybe focusing more so on the run of a Savio or the run of a Doku in behind, particularly Savio. That's what he's really good at. So, for example, there could be a situation where there's like the false nine comes to pick up the ball. They're obviously more comfortable with doing that than an Erling Haaland. Let's say, I don't know, let's say Bernardo Silva.
So I'll put Bernardo in there. So what kind of system would you go for then? If you were quickly to fire through a forward line and midfield onwards, what would it look like? So Rodri.
So that front three is fine. We can keep Foden the same. Let's just swap De Bruyne to Bernardo, and I think that would be fine, just for the purposes of this example. So you could easily have a situation, where you're like baiting the opponent's press, for example. Bernardo Silva receives the ball from, let's say, a Foden pass. The defenders push up to to try to press and mark Bernardo. Bernardo then, deft little touch, lays it off to De Bruyne. De Bruyne, first time ball in behind the fullback for the run of a Savio. And then Savio's currently got acres of space to run into, and he's, potentially got an easy cutback for like a 1v1 situation or whatever. So I think that maybe if we played a false nine situation, that could get even more out of our really exciting wide players if Doku and Savio are on the pitch. And I'm of the view that Pep would be reluctant, for the most part, to play Doku and Savio in the same team at the same time, for the most part, because they're quite explosive, etc. But if by which I mean, Savio, Haaland, Doku.
Yeah.
But I think he might be more. Sorry, I think he might be. Not what's the opposite of reluctant? I can't. My brain's gone blank. Willing. He's
willing,
more willing.
likely. Yeah.
My brain. Yeah, he'd be more willing to play Doku and Savio in the same team if there was not a Haaland in the middle, but a Bernardo, a Bob, a Foden sort of player. It provides a bit more balance, I think. So again, that might actually get the more out of our explosive attacking wide players. As I say, I think Savio would be the main beneficiary of that because he's so good at making those runs in behind the fullback in particular. And when you've got a player like De Bruyne with his long distance passing, it could be a match made in heaven. And it's certainly a pretty good plan B when Haaland's out, either because he's injured or you need to rest him.
So, yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, one thing I did enjoy from Savino the other day is that he was very willing to tap the back post when he was on the left. And I love that because we've not seen a lot of that from our wingers for a while. He was aggressive. When you talk about, look who did this the other day. Bob kind of whipped it across, and obviously it was Bernardo there, funny enough, which was a very nice little example, getting on the header. But, you've got a guy like De Bruyne picking the ball up here, willing to whip the ball, around here to the back post. And Savio, if he wants to put a little bit more width, get on the back of it, the end of it, that could be really useful. As you said as well, we could see Bob go through the middle. We could even see Foden back there again, picking up the ball there and trying to turn and getting a shot off towards the top corners. He does so well. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Bernardo for a little bit of bite drop back, and then you can see Oscar Bob flit over that way, and Foden could do that. There's loads of different ways you can approach it, isn't there? Are you not a little bit nervous that it could be? I don't know. Are you not? Are you? So you're more in favour of this as a plan B than another striker? Is that right?
Me personally, yes. Because I just think that I don't know what sort of striker we'd sign, because the issue is that you can't sign a striker who is like good enough to start because they wouldn't be happy being on the bench in theory. But at the same time, if you sign a player who is happy being on the bench, then in theory they wouldn't be good enough to start, if that makes sense, because they're also not going to rotate with Haaland. If Haaland's available, doesn't need resting, Haaland starts. So I think it would make a bit more sense to just have whether that's someone we have now or a signing we make, someone who is comfortable playing up top, but is also really comfortable playing either out wide or in the midfield. If Alvarez was a great midfielder, then it would be a perfect situation. But sadly, that's not his shtick. So that's the sort of vibe we need to go for. Someone in the mold of a Dani Almo. If we were bringing in a new player, obviously I know he's going to Barca, but that sort of player. We do have those players on our books. Again, we have a Bob who I think would be great. In fact, I think he played false nine in a Champions League group stage game last season, if memory serves, for a time. Bob can do that, and he can play out wide, and he can play in midfield. We know Foden can do that. We know that Bernardo, Grealish, etc., can all do that. I just think it makes a bit more sense.
No, I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. We've been chatting a little bit about different ideas. I would love to know what you would like to see, personally. If you were to choose, it's so hard to do this. I'm aware, but what you'd love to see give a try. I'm not going to say your best 11, but what 11 would you like to see try? I can build it for you now, mate. And then tactically, I can try and arrange it for you as well. I presume Ederson in goal, right?
Yeah. I'm a big Ederson fan. What I would like to see, so just brief. So what didn't work last season, as we've touched on, was having full backs as wide players. So what I want is to have wide players as wide players. So okay. I want my wingers to be wingers. So in terms of how, shall we start from the back and go forward?
Go for it, yeah.
This is my fun team I'd like to see give a try, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So I think I want Guardiola, yes.
Yeah, he's there already.
I think that he is a fantastic player. I love Ake, but I love John Stones more if he's fit. So I would like to see, I know it's sacrilege, I'd like to see Stones in for Ake, please.
Who alongside him?
Diaz, yes. So Diaz and Stones need to do a switcheroo.
Yeah, he's on that side, then.
Yeah.
What about right back? Yeah, Akanji, yeah.
Yeah, Kyle Walker is not the player he once was. Akanji is a better defender than him. Walker has turned into a defensive liability. His pace is not enough to cover his, I don't know if it's mental fatigue or whatever it is. Akanji is the superior defender, and
Yeah.
I think he may even be superior on the ball, to be honest. And it's got to that point.
No, I agree. Yeah.
Stones is going to push up alongside Rodri. So it's basically, I'm trying to replicate how he won the treble, essentially.
Nostalgia kicking in.
Yeah, whether it will work is another matter. But so that as a back five, I think that's really good. You know, the 3-2, Gvardio, Diaz, Akanji, Rodri, Stones. I think that's really good. It's the treble winning team. The only difference is you've got Gvardio in for Ake. Gvardio's better on the ball than Ake. Ake is a better 1v1 defender. That is known. That is understood. Bernardo Silva is not in my team. I'm sorry.
Oh, controversial.
I know. I love Bernardo. Of course I do. Of course I love him. You've already popped him in there. I need Phil Foden in there. We saw last season Foden was our best, in my opinion, our best player. He must play in midfield. He must play. De Bruyne is our best player. He must also play. So he stays there, Kevin. That's fine. Okay. I would like Savio on the right, please.
Yep.
Or Savinho, whichever you prefer. They're both correct.
I'm trying to. You got in early enough with the whole name change thing for me. Like when Rodri, like everyone announced him as Rodri, and then eventually I'm Rodrigo. And I'm like, too late, mate. You went months. He got in before he signed, and I thought, you know what, I'll be SEO friendly and get him because he said I'm Savinho on the date he signed. It's like my best mate told me he'd prefer to be called David than Dave after 10 years. Like, mate, it's too long now. I don't care. You Dave to me.
We're committed.
He's committed, yeah. So Savio on the right. What about on the left?
Yes. Now, I don't really... I think it totally depends on who the opponent is. I'm honestly 50-50 between Grealish and Doku.
Okay.
So I actually don't have a preference here, to be honest. Okay, it depends on...
You're not allowed to be that neutral, mate. You've got to love one and hate the other. That's how it works.
Yeah, so obviously, look, if we touched on Grealish before, if Grealish has another injury hit season, then obviously I can't have him in this team. But everyone knows that I'm a big defender of Jack Grealish, and I do like him a lot. Doku is obviously a more exciting, sexy option, but I might need to be, as much as my fun starting 11, we do have to have a bit of, be a little bit reserved. Now, this team is very, very fun, as you can see. It is very similar to the team that Stephen put up earlier. You know, the one against West Ham. The main difference is that you got a Savio instead of Bernardo, and obviously Stones didn't start today.
No, he didn't. This is the one you won about earlier. This is up here on screen right now. It was that where we had Rodri sort of holding behind Foden and De Bruyne.
Yeah, so it is very similar, and I would like to see. I like to hope that was like a view to the future. The back five is, I think that's a really good rest defense, i.e. how City set up defensively without the ball. It's very fun. In possession, the attacking front five again is very, very fun. It's very attacking. It is very uncontrolled. So that's maybe why it's not likely. It does also raise issues of off-ball structure. It relies on Foden being able to be a good partner for Rodri off the ball.
So defensively, you presume it'd be something like this, wouldn't you? Defensively,
yes,
basically. KDB portal pressing and more like this, basically, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. It's very wishful thinking. I totally appreciate that, but I just, in the same way that I thought last season this is going to be Foden's midfield breakout year, and indeed it was. I just really think and hope that this is going to be the next evolution in Foden's game, where he will learn to play alongside Rodri. And I'll repeat, it only happened 3 times last season, but 2 of those games were 2 of our biggest games all season. In the second leg against Real Madrid, Pep trusted Foden to do that, and I thought he did a good job. In the last game of the season against West Ham, must win or you won't win the league. He did that, and he did it brilliantly well. Best player on the pitch. I like that team. It's very fun.
Yeah, I like it too. I absolutely agree. And it's one of those things where, like, I would love to see that too. I mean, if I was doing my dream, I would like Rico. I just love Rico. I want him in field.
That's fair. I also love Lewis.
I think he's a genius, and I think actually he's shown signs of progression, if anything, in preseason. I was one of those sick weirdos who stayed up to watch all those games, and I thought he was. I don't know. I just love it when Rico's on the pitch. And look, ideally for me, Oscar Bob's available. We don't know if he is. All the rumors and people are going crazy still. And I get that. I get the fear, but I would love Oscar Bob on this team. I'm a massive academy advocate, of course. Savinho or Docker. I mean, there's something to me about having Savinho on the left. I don't know. I think he's. I don't think it's likely.
He
I
can
think
do
he's playing
both,
the
which
right.
is great.
But I just love the idea of having a left-footed winger who can cross to Haaland, and I love that. I mean, I would be very happy with either Ake or Guardiola. I think in this instance, I'd probably be tempted by Ake because Ake is just such a phenomenal defender. Yeah, he's such a phenomenal defender. But I would love to see this personally. I mean, I'm fine with this guy here being Walker or Kanji, whatever, or Stones, because the pace he would play more of this way and more of a 3-2 build up. I'm not gonna kid myself that Rico Lewis wouldn't be up here, pushing around, and Rodri wouldn't be camping outside the area. So if you want to put Kyle there, absolutely fine. I'm just an Akanji fanboy, man. I love him. Doesn't mean I hate Kyle Walker. I just think Akanji's playing at that level right now you get to when you've sort of done it all and you realize just how good you are and you've cut out the mistakes and you're just confident and you're strong and you're at your physical peak. And I think that's where Akanji is right now. You can tell he's had a couple of years of lessons from Guardiola. He's won the whole thing and he just feels world class to me right now. He does. Akanji feels world class, and I love Kyle, but I don't think Kyle's currently world class. I think he's on the way down from that. And to me, I still love Akanji, and I think he's a better footballer as well on that side. And I think he's brilliant.
Easily.
I feel like, I really also just simply really like Rico and Oscar linking up with each other. I think they're absolutely excellent. I mean, it really works. I don't know if we'll see this. I'm got a feeling we're going to see. Guardiola sort of tried this in the Community Shield where Lewis was playing a lot more of a right back, wasn't he? He was playing a lot more just traditionally as a right back, and that's going to be interesting to see. And I would not be surprised if we see occasionally KDB on the bench and Bernardo sort of here, playing as another 8. Foden a little bit further forward. I mean, the numbers are the wrong way around there, but you know what I'm on about. Foden a bit more as a 10, probably doing what De Bruyne does occasionally where he defends that way. Then you've got the wingers out there. I don't know. There's a billion different ways that City could line up this season. We don't know. We don't know. Me or Nobbins, I haven't got a clue. But I do feel, dynamically, and I'm going to go back to the big screen now, I reckon. Let me quickly click back over there because I feel like we've talked about an awful lot. Where have we gone? I do feel dynamically this City side has got a lot of versatility this year. You've got really different options at right back. Rico Lewis can play and invert really nicely. Kyle Walker is obviously one of the best natural one-on-one defenders with his pace in the world still. Guardiola, we know we can play sort of left wing, not perfectly, but you can get up there. A great left wing back, left side of centre back in a free as well. Ake, perfect defensively. Kovacic, we haven't even talked about him at all, at all in this video, Kovacic, but we have been a bit unfair there about Kovacic. I don't think we even mentioned his name really in this video. What do you think his role is going to be this season?
I do like Kovacic. We don't win the league without him last season. He provided Rodri that support. He provides us more control. He probably will get more game time than we're giving him credit for due to that fact. Certainly, if we don't sign another midfielder, he'll probably play a lot more. But no, Kovacic is a good player. But fundamentally, he's a limited player, certainly in respect of his influence in the final third. Nor is he capable, in my opinion, of solely deputizing in Rodri's absence. But he's a very good player. He provides us. The way to describe it is he's sort of, in a way, he brings a sort of calmness and control that Grealish does, but from the center, if that makes sense. He's a good player.
Let's leave it there. Let's leave the video there. I mean, we're going to try and deal with the Oscar Bob alleged news. It's been hanging over this video massively. The internet's absolutely alive. But this, of course, was part 3 of the the season preview. Hopefully, it's going to involve Oscar Bob an awful lot. Thank you so much, Nobbins, for coming on, mate. I've really enjoyed it. It's been wonderful. Of course, check out Nobbins' channel. The link is in the description. As always, you know how to find. Just search Nobbins on YouTube and it'll pop up there as well. Do you see you're streaming at 8? Am I right there?
I am indeed, in 45 minutes.
Where are you streaming? Is it on YouTube? Yeah.
On YouTube, yes.
Yeah. I was double check it wasn't Twitch or anything like that. Well, go check out Nobbins' stream 8 o'clock, and I'm sure you can go and chat about Oscar Bob over there as well. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Please subscribe to the channel if you don't mind. If you haven't already, give the video a like. And tomorrow around 3 p.m, I think I'll be chatting about Manchester City's rivals for this upcoming season and looking at them all individually. For now, though, thanks, guys. Hopefully, Oscar Bob's okay in a bit. Bye bye. Thank you.